What if I told you that now you can generate entire workflows ready to tweak inside n8n with just one single prompt? By triggering MCP servers inside tools such as Claude Desktop or Cursor, you can now generate pretty reliable workflows with a speed that was not possible before. And this is because I'm going to show you two of the most powerful methods that exist at the moment to do this. In the first part, I'm going to show you how to use Claude Desktop with something called Docker Container, which will allow you to generate the workflow, but also post it directly onto your n8n application. And in the second part, we're going to see how to take things to the next level by escaping some of the limitations that Claude Desktop has by moving onto Cursor. So if this doesn't make much sense, I'm going to show you now a little demo to show you how this works. Let's get right in. All right, so you see that we are in Claude Desktop over here and we have the Search and Tools button. So if we click that, you see that we're given essentially Claude Desktop access to a couple different tools. So this is kind of the AI agent section, okay? Because we're giving it access to tools. And we see that we're giving it access to web search, Drive, Gmail, Calendar, and then we have these custom tools that we set up on a configuration file in the background. Okay, I'll show you how to do that later. But I'm gonna click on this and I'm gonna show you the custom actions that it has. Okay, these are all specific to n8n. They are backed by n8n documentation. So you're gonna see the one below over here, n8n create workflow. That's going to allow us to actually create the workflow and post it onto our own n8n app. We have other stuff like validating the workflow, which is going to allow the agent to essentially think with real n8n files, okay, in the background, whether it's actually a good workflow that is generating or not. I'm going to give it two prompts, okay? The first one is going to be a very simple prompt. So generate an n8n workflow that will create a transcription from my YouTube video and will then create a blog post on Webflow. Let's make it really simple and let's see what it does. I want to show you what it's doing in the background. Okay, so you see that we are giving it access. We are allowing it to launch these MCP tools and we see the query over here, okay? So we're gonna allow it always so that we don't need to interrupt it all the time. And we can see what tools is it running from the MCP that we configured, okay? So this is really powerful because we can actually step in and see what is actually going on. So we are searching nodes. So it's smart enough to actually, before generating anything, it's going to search for nodes that are best for our scenario, okay? So this is just gonna reduce the amount of hallucinations that we get. Now it's searching for OpenAI and HTTP request nodes. So very smart. We're getting node essentials and we can see a response over here as well with all the relevant data. It even knows that it needs to search for a suitable trigger node as well. And since it was pretty simple, it didn't do much reasoning, okay? Because we're given a very simple prompt. So we're leaving it up to its imagination to see what it should do. So we see here that it generates a file, okay? And it even goes into generating a system prompt and a user prompt as well with the dynamic variables that you tend to see inside n8n, which is something that if you ask to another LLM or even Claude Desktop without MCPs, well, it doesn't do well. We're actually going to verify that once we see it on n8n, see how good it is. So we have a workflow review and it's given us, well, what it's doing step by step, really good, its key features and whatnot. Okay, so right now it's telling us to import the workflow to our n8n instance, but we can actually tell it to do it for us. So we can say, upload the workflow for me into my n8n instance, because I already gave it access to this on the MCP files. Okay, so you see here, it's doing an n8n health check to see if it actually has access to the URL of my, to my n8n instance. It actually verified. Your n8n instance is accessible. Now it's going to create the workflow for me and I really don't have to step in at all. I don't even have to copy this and paste it and put a name for it. It's just going to do it automatically in the background. So this is pretty cool, pretty powerful. All right, and now if we see, say it's perfect. I've successfully uploaded your YouTube to Webflow blog post. And we see the name that it has over here. Okay, so we're actually going to check our n8n instance and you see that we have it over here. YouTube to Webflow blog post. So we see here, we're gonna have a look and it's pretty much complete. So I don't know if you tried doing this in ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatnot. It usually doesn't understand what nodes should be added correctly. So sometimes you would see some nodes with a question mark, which means that either the JSON that I generated, right, at least for that node, is not correct, okay? There's something missing. Or it's a community node, but it's unlikely that it's the second one. It's more likely that it just generated the wrong code. But you can see over here that with the first shot and with the crappy prompt that I gave it, it managed to reason and actually give me the right nodes. So this is pretty powerful. So get the YouTube video info, right? I'll probably need to verify this, but the fact that it's able to write on top of it properly, it's able to even name the nodes for me as well. Query parameters V. Okay, I'll need to check that. But it's pretty good. It even generates the code for me on this code node, which is pretty powerful. Transcribe the audio. Okay, it's using OpenAI in this case. So this is pretty good as well because one of the MCPs actually is accessing live documentation. Okay, it's getting the latest updates from most services that can be used inside n8n. So this is why, if we actually put this to work, the URLs actually work. Webflow settings, and yeah, probably the hardest part as well is adding the Webflow nodes over here. Okay, adding the actual stuff inside the Webflow nodes, because this is more of an obscure node that doesn't get used too much. We can see over here that it even fills in the dynamic expressions, which is very powerful, right? Webflow settings, create Webflow post. So yes, some of the naming doesn't, oh yeah, it actually carries forward. So I just wanted to verify that, you know, it's actually calling the right nodes, but it's doing it correctly as well. So this is something where usually the typical ways in which you do this, if you use ChatGPT or Perplexity or even Claude or Claude Desktop without MCPs, it's something that usually gets wrong. So calling previous nodes, right? So you see here Webflow settings. It's calling this Webflow settings node with the right name. So this is something that usually it trips over this, but it's doing it properly. So I'm very surprised by, you know, the little detail that I gave to the prompt to Claude Desktop, and it came with this. And it even did the OpenAI node really good as well. So you can see over here, it added the system role, it added the user role as well. Maybe it forgot to switch to expression, but all I need to do is that, and there you go. Pretty good. It has to simplify, it even had a sampling temperature and the number of tokens, which is pretty good. All right, so now that you've seen how this works in Claude Desktop and how impressive it is in my opinion, I'm going to show you how to set this up. All right, so before moving with the actual build, I think it's important for you to understand how this all works in the background. So essentially, we're giving Claude Desktop access to 3 different resources. The first resource is n8n's source code. So you might know n8n is actually open source, which means that we can have a look at how they have built this using code. And this is giving Claude Desktop additional context, right? Really important context on how n8n is being built, especially on how the 530 plus nodes that make n8n work, okay? So this is going to allow it to start the build of any workflow properly. Then we're giving it access to a collection of more than 2,000 finished n8n workflows, so that whilst it's building, it can just verify that it's building it correctly for a certain use case, okay? So it can do it whilst it's being built and once it has finished building, okay? So this is just giving Claude Code additional reassurance that what it's building is actually good. And finally, we're giving Claude Desktop access to up-to-date documentation. Because I don't know about you, but I definitely have tried connecting and contacting services via HTTP requests in n8n. And when I sometimes ask ChatGPT or Perplexity, it tends to get the URL wrong and also the JSON body, the information requests that we're sending to or from the service. So it gets it sometimes wrong, and this is a bit frustrating. So by giving it access to repository of up-to-date documentations of the services that we tend to use, then we're making sure that we get the least errors when Claude Desktop generates the URL, the JSON request that we're sending, alongside other things that are involved with making an API request. These are essentially the resources that we're given it, right? But the thing is that we don't want to tell Claude Desktop to only use the online search tool to just read these files, okay? We want to have a closer connection to these data sources, because essentially what these are, they're all GitHub repositories. So they're just pieces of code that are just sitting on these GitHub servers, okay? So by grabbing these GitHub repositories and turning them into MCP servers, we can actually perform actions on these pieces of code, okay? Claude Desktop can actually grab these and manipulate them to build on top of them, right? So not only read that information, but actually grab the code and use it to build the workflows that we want. So we're gonna be using a tool called Git MCP, turn these 2 GitHub repositories into little MCP servers that are going to be hosted by these people over here at Git MCP. Okay, so we're going to turn this into a remote MCP because we're running it outside of our computer. These are remote MCPs. And with this one, we're not going to use Git MCP to create this MCP server. We're going to use something called Docker. Okay, we're going to spin up what's called a container. And you might be wondering, well, Frank, what the hell are you talking about? All right, so essentially what I want to do with this MCP server is a bit different to these two. So with these two, I'm pretty much just grabbing all of the information from the GitHub repositories and giving it to Cloud Code to manipulate. Okay, but with this one, I want to perform more complex actions. I want to have direct access to my n8n account so I can perform actions such as creating a workflow directly within my n8n account without me having to copy paste, edit workflows, delete workflows, and many other things. And in order to do this, I could just install specific packages or libraries that give these functionality to perform these actions. But the problem with installing it directly in my computer is that a lot of errors could arrive, okay? Because I need to install certain things that could break my computer or could break any future projects that I make. So what I'm doing, instead of installing all of these things in my computer, I'm using what's called a container. And you can think of a container as a virtual machine, okay? It's a virtual computer where I can install this MCP server in, okay? So I could install all these packages, all these things, all these tools that I need inside this container so that I don't have to do it in my own laptop and don't break anything. Okay, so I just want to give you that overview. I don't want to complicate it too much. And this is an example of a local MCP because this is all happening. I'm calling this MCP server in my computer. Even though it's on a container, it's still happening in my computer. Okay, and through here, I'm then accessing my n8n account in the cloud. Okay, so this MCP server is running locally in my computer using Docker versus these two MCPs which are running on this server in the cloud, okay? Because I don't need to perform many complex actions. Hopefully that made sense. All right, Frank, but why use MCPs or MCP servers? I'm just gonna clarify this for you really quickly. So if you don't know, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and it just allows us to call or create tools for LLMs much easier. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So let's say I have an LLM over here and I'm gonna allow it access to different tools, okay? We're gonna ask it to perform different actions for our Google Drive. So we're gonna allow it to upload files, download files, and delete files. Traditionally, how this is done is that we need to create an HTTP or an API request for each of these. And we need to add a URL, right, with an endpoint that describes the action upload slash, so it's like Google Drive, blah, 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 slash upload, slash download, slash delete, okay? And as well as a lot of other manual things that you have to set up. Now, let's say that you have 10 different more actions that you want to add, okay? You might understand how tedious this is. So instead of adding all of these manually and LLM also being slightly confused on which one to use, let's all unify all of these and be able to call all of these by using what's called an MCP server. So this just saves us a lot of time because now the only thing that we have to do is just set up this MCP server, which is going to have all of these actions set up already for us. So instead of doing all of these manually, you just have to set this up, okay? Hopefully this illustration helps as well. I don't want to get too deep into it because I do have another video which you can check. But essentially we're calling Slack, for example, we're calling Google Drive, we're calling GitHub. This is probably not the best illustration, but you get the idea. We're just putting them under the same umbrella. So now by just setting this up only, we can call these individual APIs. Okay, so hopefully that was clear. Hi there, just briefly want to stop the video to announce that I have finally launched my community, Neuro Architects, where I plan to bring together the smartest people in this space and business owners that want to build the systems of the future together using artificial intelligence. So inside this community, you'll find everything ranging from all the templates that I will make from the YouTube videos, as well as exclusive community calls, and also so much other stuff. So join right now, stay tuned, and I'll see you inside. All right, so now that you hopefully understand this, let's move to the setup. All right, so the first thing that you need to do is to install Claude on your desktop. So in order to use this, you'll need to have a paid plan or a max plan, okay? So make sure you have either of them and install it on your device. So I do suggest that you try it. I'm not affiliated with them. I just think that it's worth a try. So, pay for any of the plans, try for a month. If you like it, you stay. If not, you go. So download it for your device, and then you're going to go and open Claude Desktop. Now you are going to go into the settings for this app, and you're going to go down to the developer section, and you will see something like this. Okay, obviously you won't have this because you didn't set this up, but you will see a button that says edit config. You're going to open that, and you are going to see this configuration file, which is where we're going to add the credentials to our MCP servers. Okay, in this case we have 3. So I'm going to double click that, and the file is going to open, the JSON file is going to open on a generic text editor or on your code editor. Okay, in this case it's being opened in Cursor. And we have this MCP server that has been configured in Docker. Then we have these 2 that are created using Git MCP. So you probably have nothing over here, but don't worry, because we're going to tell Claude Desktop to build this for us. Okay, so we're going to use Claude to build the config file for Claude, which is pretty funny. But yeah, so I'm going to show you to do that right now. I'm going to show you first the 3 different GitHub repositories that we're going to use and turn into MCP servers. So the first one is the one that we use in Docker, which we'll cover later. I just want to give a big shout out to Romuald over here, because I know that he has put a decent amount of work into this. So I'm just going to go back, and just quickly, I'm going to show you what we're going to use. So this is going to allow us essentially to, as I said, access our n8n app, retrieve, add, edit, and anything that we want from our n8n app. But essentially what we will be using is go down. It should be this one. Yeah, exactly. So we'll be using this one. You see that we have 2 modes. We have the basic configuration, which is like the other 2 MCP servers that we'll build, which only gives us access to the documentation tool. Okay, we're able to retrieve some documentation data and use that to build our workflows. But we want to go a step further. These are the superpowers that are enabled by Docker, is that we can go into this full configuration mode, which allows us to tap onto these n8n management tools. This is going to allow us to have direct access to our n8n app in order to add any documentation, edit documentation, and so on. And as you can see here, we have our API URL and our API key, which we'll add in a bit. But just wanted you to understand what we're doing over here. We're going to go now onto this second repository, okay? And this is the repository that has all the full finished n8n workflows for reference. In order to do this, what we're gonna do, we're gonna grab this URL, and we're going to go to Git MCP, which is this amazing tool that is going to allow us to convert this into an MCP server, okay? So click, add the URL to MCP, and now we have just spin up a very simple MCP server, and you're gonna choose Claude Desktop, okay? So you're gonna grab that, copy that, and we're gonna go into Claude Desktop, and what you're gonna put, we're gonna open a new chat. I'm gonna say, create an MCP config file for Claude Desktop to connect to these MCP servers. Okay, and we're gonna be adding all of the files step by step. So gonna add this first one that we have. Then we are going to add the second one. The third one, sorry. This is the last one that I didn't show you yet. And this is to access the up-to-date documentation, okay? So we're just gonna grab this URL, go into Git MCP, delete these, paste this new one, and press to MCP. Cool. Now we're going to go to Claude Desktop, do the same thing, copy that, and we are going to go on to Claude Desktop once again. All right, I'm going to separate it by a couple of commas so that I understand that it's a different JSON object. All right, so let's add another separator over here, and now we're going to add the last one. So this one over here. Okay, and so I left it at the end because we need some API credentials. So now I'm going to go all the way up, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Okay, not the option 1, go to option 2. Okay. Docker, and you're going to go onto the full configuration. So the second one, copy that, paste that over here, and you're going to add another separator. Okay, and you're going to say for the last MCP server, my n8n API URL is right. Now that's when we will go onto n8n. For the n8n URL, it's essentially everything that you see here: frank https frank1234.app.n8n.cloud. So all of that, and don't include the / okay, in front of cloud. Gonna come back, you're gonna paste that here. Essentially, we're gonna allow Claude Desktop to create us the config file for Claude Desktop as well. That it is, add a couple commas, and my n8n API key is, and I'm gonna put a space. Claude Desktop should be smart enough to detect the differences, like, you know, what actually is the API key. Okay, so now we are going to go to settings, okay? We already grabbed the URL. So inside n8n, go to settings. You're gonna go into the n8n API section, and we are going to create an API key. Okay, put a name, okay, demo MCP Claude, for example. You're gonna save that, okay, just give it all the scopes, that's fine. and you're gonna copy the API key. Don't worry, I will be deleting the API key as soon as I finish the video. But anyways, you're gonna come back here, just paste it over here, okay? And now you're all ready because we have this. This doesn't require any of our credentials. This one is the same. And then for the last one, which we're gonna use Docker with, is the only one that requires the URL and the key, which we added already. So we're gonna press enter. Now it's gonna go ahead and create that MCP config file, similar to the one that I have over here, right? Which we opened using the settings in Cloud Desktop. So yours will probably look something like this because you have nothing in it. And what you're going to do is essentially go ahead and copy all of this. Just copy that. Come back over here, select all, delete so that it's blank, and then paste it like this, okay? Don't forget to save, okay? Command S or however you do it. I'm gonna do that. We're gonna revert it back to how it was, how I had it before. But once that's done, then now you can hit save and you can close this. Right now you have the Git MCP ones, okay? The ones that don't require Docker. These should work properly already. So if you close Cloud Desktop and open it again, okay? If you go to the tools, you should have the n8n Workflows docs and the docs MCP server docs. These should be available. The one that you shouldn't have available is the n8n MCP. And that's because we did not set up Docker yet, okay? Because this requires Docker to work. So we're gonna look at how to do that right now. All right, so now we need to run this last MCP server, which will be running locally. So we will need a Docker container to do this. So we're gonna download Docker Desktop. So you go ahead, choose your device, and once you have downloaded, then you are going to open it, okay? Here is the app in itself. All right, we're not gonna get too deep into this. I'm just gonna explain you the essential things that you need to do and understand about this. So we have Docker over here, okay? And the first thing that we need to do is, first of all, keep this open if we want the MCP server to work. The second thing is, well, we're gonna run a command right now on the terminal of our computer. And this is going to pull what's called an image. You can think of an image as a recipe in order to build a container. Okay, a container is essentially that virtual machine that I was talking to you about that is going to power our MCP server. Okay, and this MCP server will be communicating back and forth with our n8n account in order to add new workflows once we create them with Cloud Desktop, edit them, delete them, and so on. So you probably see nothing here because we didn't yet pull any image. So that's what we're going to do now. So you're gonna go on the bottom right part. You're gonna see a thing called terminal. Open that, and we are going to add the following command, okay? This is gonna pull, as you see if you read the command, Docker pull, okay? We're gonna pull an image, and we're gonna pull the latest version, okay? I'm gonna leave this in the description, or you can go ahead and download it from the GitHub repository, okay? There should be somewhere around here. Yeah, over here, okay? Under option 2. So once that's there, you can run that, and now we should be pulling the latest version. So for me, it was quick. For you, it should be a bit longer because I already have the image downloaded. Okay. So once you have that, then all you need to do is go back to Claude. Okay, and you're gonna close it. You're gonna close that. We already had the config files. We closed that already, but you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna close Claude Desktop, and we are going to open it again whilst having Docker Desktop open. Okay. So we're gonna open that, and you'll see that once I open Cloud Desktop, we created a new container for that same image, right? This last container that was created, that's where the MCP server is going to be running in, okay? You're gonna use this last one. So you wanna make sure that at least the last one that you built is green, it's running, okay? So don't forget that. And you're gonna go back and open Cloud Desktop. So I'm gonna put it over here, and if you go to the search and tools tab over here or button, now you should see that in addition to these two MCP servers or tools, actually, we have this one with 39 different tools. Okay, this server with 39 different tools, and that's what's going to allow us to push the potential even further when creating n8n workflows, because now you'll be able to connect with your n8n account. Okay, so this is pretty good, and that's essentially all you need to do. And with this last one to keep running whilst using Cloud Desktop, you need to keep this open. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this part. All right, so now I will show you the second method in which you can build n8n workflows. So I'll be using Cursor, but you can use essentially any AI-powered code editor. So we're gonna open a new project, and I'm just gonna add it inside. I'm gonna create a new folder over here and call it whatever you want, okay? So we're gonna call it demo, and we're gonna open it because you're not gonna have any files. And essentially what you can do if you want is we're going to create a new file over here. As you know, n8n workflows are JSON files, okay? So we're gonna name our workflow over here. So we're going to name it something like whatever you want to build, essentially. I'm just going to call it YouTube transcript, just YouTube trans.json. It's going to automatically create a JSON file over here. Okay, so once you have that, now we actually need to allow the AI agent inside Cursor to have access to these MCP servers that were created in a similar way that we gave access to Claude Desktop. But the difference here is that we can have a more iterative back and forth conversation with the agent inside Cursor without running into any limits. Because if you remember when I was using Claude Desktop in the demo, you saw that I was already reaching limits. And we can see over here, let me see if we can choose different models. Right, so over here we can have a variety of different models, and we are not only limited to the models inside Claude, right? We can use also all three, Gemini 2.5 Pro if we want incredible context, right? So we're not limited by staying inside the Claude's environment, right? With something like Cursor, we can actually expand that even further and choose other models. We can even go on max mode as well, right? So that's what we're actually going to try now for you to see the power of this. So we're going to switch that on. You don't need to, okay? I'm just going to show you. And well, I talk too much. So now I think it's time to actually set up the MCP servers. You're going to go over to Cursor settings, okay? Cursor settings, and then Cursor settings. And then you're going to go down onto tools and integrations. And you should see a section called MCP tools. And you're going to hit on the button add custom MCP, okay? And this file should open. For you, it should be blank, or it should have some placeholder value or whatever, okay? We have already built this. If you remember, okay, if you open the Claude config file, which should be somewhere over here. Okay, I mean, you can just open it again by going to Claude. Just going to open that. Claude, settings, developer, edit config. Okay, so we essentially want to grab all of that, okay, and add it onto the MCP file from Cursor. And once you've added that, you're going to save that. And that's pretty much it, okay? So now you can close that. You can close all these. And now you see that you should have these MCP servers enabled already as tools, okay? So that's already set up because we already did it for Claude Desktop. So now we can just go ahead and build upon this JSON file over here. All right, let's build something a bit different because I think we already built something like this before on the demo, on the first demo. Let's email agent, let's call it. And we're just gonna say, create a simple n8n workflow that monitors my Gmail inbox for new emails, uses AI to analyze if it's a sale inquiry or customer question, then automatically drafts appropriate responses. For sales leads, it should ask qualifying questions about budget, timeline, or needs. For support questions, it should provide helpful answers or escalate to my email if complex. And for general inquiries, you should respond professionally while, let's say, gathering contact info. The AI should maintain my writing style and company voice, save all interactions to a Google Sheet for tracking, and only send responses after I approve them via a simple yes or no email or Slack notification. Let's pass that over here, and we want to give it enough detail so that it understands what's happening, okay? So let's press enter and let's see what it does. And as I said again, like I'm using max to just see what it does. I'm just very curious to see how it performs on max mode, but I think using Claude for Sonnet in its normal mode, I think is fine enough. You have all three that you can try out, Gemini 2.5 Pro, which has amazing context windows, and so on. You can even add other models as well. If you fancy, pull out any API keys, and perhaps you could add also Open Router to have even more access to other models. So let's see what it comes up with. You see that it's calling already the MCP, n8n MCPs. Searching for nodes, right? It's pretty good. This is going to increase the accuracy of the generation. Getting node essentials, so the Google Sheet nodes and stuff like that, just reading it out. Right, so there you go. We have generated the workflow, and now we're just going to ask it to, right, comprehensive setup guide. We don't need the setup guide. So I just ask it, create this workflow in my n8n account using MCPs available. So we're going to push it straight into my n8n account because I'm too lazy to copy paste. Check that it has access, success true, and my URL. So this is all pretty powerful. All right, we're giving it access to running this tool. All right, there you go. So the workflow has been created, and we can just stop this. We don't need this. So if we go to n8n now, and we go back over here, we should see that we have created the AI email automation assistant. Let's have a look at it. Right, so it's pretty complete. When you added a nice nurture node and all that, so let's clean it a bit and see what it has done. right? I mean, look at this. I have never seen this amount of progress, right? And the fact that there's no missing nodes. I mean, apart from this one, I guess, but this is kind of a secondary thing, I suppose. Well, we have the AI nodes, right? The model, I mean, well, this is probably something that I have to set up over here, but that's fine. The different OpenAI nodes. It even added some code as well to prepare the response data, which is pretty good. The logic for categorizing the emails as well, sending a Slack request, approval request, and sending. Right, so, I mean, I wouldn't say it's 100% perfect, but I mean, look, this is a great start. I mean, from the looks of it, all you need to do is just pretty much replace all of the nodes with the right credentials and just tweak a little things, and you probably have something working. So think about earlier on, this was not possible. I mean, if you just try generating this using a normal AI agent or language model, you're not gonna get this amount of accuracy at all. Like, I promise, like, you're gonna get most of the nodes to look like this, okay? And the fact that it didn't do that, it actually like filled in everything and it added the right triggers as well, which is a very hard thing to do. It's pretty impressive. And especially with Cursor, the fact that, you know, you can create more than one workflow. You could imagine if you give it the right instructions as well, because what you can do is go to Cursor settings over here and you can give it custom instructions. So if, let's say you're using in this session, you're using it to only create n8n workflows, what you can do is add a rule and add specific things that you want the agent to do that are, you know, that are unique to building n8n workflows, right? So you can refine this even further over here, and I'm pretty sure you can create pretty fascinating workflows and you know, automations in general by just adding a few prompts. And the fact that you can also easily refine the automation back and forth. So you could edit that same workflow, right? If you have a look at it visually and you see that some things are not working, you can come back to here and you can tell it to edit the workflow directly from your n8n account, right? So you can do a lot of million other things. So I'm pretty excited to how this evolves. But I'm just gonna leave it there, so because I don't want the video to run too long. But hopefully you understand the power of this, okay? Who knows where we can be with these setups in a few months to half a year, right? This could get even more accurate. All right, so what I actually did over here, the way I ran it, was not the best way, okay? I just wanted to show a quick demo, but the way you should do it is by first going on to ask mode if you're in Cursor, and you're gonna talk with Cursor, okay, back and forth for it to really understand what you're trying to build, okay? I wouldn't suggest to do it one shot like me, like here it is what I think that I should do, and then and then go build it straight away. What I recommend is that you go into ask mode and you first plan out how the workflow should look like, okay? You can still use the MCPs to just validate any of the workflows that are available in order to plan what nodes are available, what is not available, and then do it back and forth. And then once you're ready, then you can switch that onto agent mode, okay? And then that's where you can start building. So I wouldn't suggest to do it exactly like me, as I said. Go into chat mode to plan the workflow. I'm gonna zoom in if you don't see it, right? This is called ask mode, but I call it plan mode. And then you put it onto agent to actually create the workflow. So that's, if you wanna do it properly, that's how I suggest to do it. In addition to adding rules, okay? So actually, now that I remember, you can go ahead and add the rules where in the repository over here. Technically, they are made for, let's say for Claude projects, but to be honest, I don't think it matters. Just add that over here, add this as a rule, press done, and try again, okay? Try building the workflow again in the same way that I said, okay? Do it first on chat mode, then once you're ready, do it on agent mode, and add that cursor rule over here that is provided by the beautiful person that created this GitHub repository. So I think that's all the tips that I can tell you to get started and build really cool workflows like this without you know, without any assistance from my part, at least, you know. And assistance, when I mean assistance, actually stepping in and, you know, building workflows. This was from a simple prompt, as you saw. This was from a very simple prompt. Imagine if you do what I actually tell you to do, which is plan the workflow first, and then, you know, adding the rules that I just did, and then putting onto agent mode. I'm pretty sure you can get further than me. So I suggest that you give that a shot. Let me know what you found in the comments below. And yeah, if you want to keep learning about AI and n8n, I prepared actually a really solid course on the pro community that you can follow regarding, you know, how to get started from nothing to 100 with n8n, and also have a separate AI Agents Accelerator course that you can check out. So feel free to check out the NA Pro community, which is separate to the free community that I have. I'm collecting right now the founding members, so feel free to be one. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up and a follow. I would really appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions for any further videos, let me know also in the comments below. And if you didn't like the video for some reason, also let me know in the comments below. Any feedback is good feedback. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.